Welcome to episode 50 of the Twig Snapper Podcast. We have a returning guest, Spencer DenBeste. He didn't get enough the first time he was here, so we decided to come back for more. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good, but I'm not going to lie. I'm just sick and tired of winter.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, we,
it's been I don't know what it's been like over in Lake State, but it's been a weird winter here.
yeah. This is probably the most snow the Sioux has seen in probably 10 to 15 years. I would say, like, it is.
Really?
Oh, it's absurd over here. We probably have as much snow as you guys over at Tech. Like,
I mean, I don't know. Maybe you guys have more then, because it's been weird. Like we had a huge dump with like a shit ton of snow at Christmas, and then maybe it snowed like 2 inches for the rest of January, and then we got dumped with like another storm at the end of January, and now it's like 40, and it's gonna be 40 this week. But it was -5 last week. Like it's just the weirdest winter. So I don't even have anything to complain about. Like the fact that, oh man, this winter's been too brutal. I don't know.
yeah,
This
no,
year, I'm just sick of it.
it's been pretty bad over here. Like 2 weeks ago, I think we had a cold day, and it ended up like -32 with the wind chill, and then
Oh man,
on Tuesday it was 47 degrees. It was like a 5 day span.
yeah, it's
It's
just weird.
it's UP weather. I think it's like
Did you see that thing about New Hampshire and their wind chill?
no,
Somewhere in New Hampshire, the wind chill got down to -108. I
holy.
I can't even imagine like what that feels like.
I don't even think you could step outside.
No, you'd probably get frostbite within 30 seconds. I
Oh yeah,
mean, that's crazy. But yeah, I mean, because negative when you said -32, I'm like, oh, that's brutal. You go outside and it's just that bitter,
yeah,
awful cold.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't do enough in the winter anymore to like enjoy it. I don't ski anymore. I used to downhill ski. I've never ice fished. I've
Oh,
never, I used to snowmobile. I don't do that anymore. It's college. I've kind of stopped doing things. So it's just like I know some people love winter.
yeah. Like I don't mind winter. Like I do quite a bit in the winter.
Yeah.
Get out ice fishing when I can, and I used to ski actually back in the day when I didn't have to worry about breaking any bones or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get back into that when you're done with hockey. You can start doing a lot of those things that you're not able to do. I mean,
Yeah.
like when was the last time that you were able to like fully enjoy deer hunting?
Oh, it has been. It's probably been 6 years. It was probably my senior year of high school.
Right,
So
because you hit juniors
yeah,
and then now college, and you haven't been able to deer hunt or I mean any hunting of any kind. I'm sure.
no, no. So like my freshman year, obviously it was kind of COVID year. So at the
Yeah,
year we didn't have any games till November. So I was able to get out, and my roommate, we were big duck hunters, so we were able to get out duck hunting quite a bit. Um,
yeah,
and then that same year, I was able to hunt quite a bit late season bow for deer.
yeah,
Um, but other than that, like, I haven't been able to. Like I like to go rifle hunting, but we're always super
yeah.
busy during rifle season. It's like
So you've had like 1 year in the last 6 years where you've actually been able to do some
hunt.
hunting.
Yeah, yep,
I mean, obviously you can fish in the summer because you've got time.
yep,
And I know you took that trip to Alaska. No, Isle Royal.
yep, yep.
Yeah, and I don't know why I thought Alaska. That'd be sweet though to go out to
That
Alaska and do some fishing.
yeah, yeah.
That'd
I
be
have
that'd
to.
be awesome. Yeah, it's one of those like bucket list things. I feel like you have to do.
Yeah,
I feel like that's one thing people never think about when they think about like pro athletes. They're like, oh, they're just living the dream. They get to play their sport. But then you think about all the stuff that you give up
oh
when
yeah,
you play your sport, or college athletes, any athlete, honestly.
yeah,
You give up so much to devote everything you have to that sport, hunting, fishing, whether you're like hiking, maybe you're into whatever your hobby is, you got to give it up and devote all your time to sports.
yeah.
It's just obviously it's kind of tough, but nobody thinks about that.
No, no, nobody really thinks about that at all. Especially, I mean, most of the time, like most of the sports people, like most of the time, oh, that's their hobby, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but there's also people out there that like to do other things and enjoy doing other things, kind of like me. So
Right, right. There's so much, especially like growing up here. Like maybe if you grew up in a big city, it'd be different. But when you grow up in the UP and you've got hunting and fishing and just like outdoor stuff from, I mean, year round, but like obviously when you're playing hockey, the winter you're just the busiest.
yeah,
But you've got all that other year round stuff. It feels a little bit different than I'm assuming. If you lived in the big city, maybe there's less to miss
yep,
because you don't even know about all this.
no, no,
Like you've got to have guys on the team that when they come up to the UP, that I mean, this is like the first time they've experienced some of this stuff.
oh yeah, definitely. And the nice thing here is like we have quite a bit of imports. So like
Yeah,
I'll have guys from Sweden. There's a couple. I think we have 3 or 4 guys from Sweden. Like they're always like, let's go shoot some guns. Like they always come up to me because they've never really done it before. They're like, can you go
yeah,
shoot guns? Like, can you take me out fishing? Can we go ice fishing? So it is pretty cool, kind of. And I like doing it. Uh,
yeah.
so I like taking those guys out, and they'll ask me, like, we'll go out in the boat, and they'll ask me. They like love asking questions because they like learning about the stuff. So like we'll go out in the boat, and most of the time, like if I go with, a kid from Michigan or the United States, we'll just go out there and we'll kind of talk, and they're not really that interested in learning about fishing.
Right.
While when I go out with the imports, they're always asking questions. They're loving learning about fishing, and who knows if they're actually, if they actually care, but they're always
Right.
very interested in what's going on.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, that they want to like
Yeah.
try all this news and then they get the opportunity to. I mean, again, if you're an import player and you're playing at, some out east school in some city, then, like what are they going to take you out to try? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
You don't
Like
really have,
here, yeah, you don't have you've got different you could try different things, obviously, like you show them American culture or whatever, but like it's completely different when you come to the UP. There's so much that you can try. There's so much that if you came from a city anywhere in the world, you would have never experienced stuff like you can in the UP. I mean, they say it's God's country for a reason. I mean, it's just
yeah.
unbelievable the stuff. And when you see pictures of like you get like pictured rocks or different places. I mean, it looks like it should be somewhere else in the world, some fantastic getaway,
Oh yeah.
but it's just right here, and it's incredible.
No, I definitely, like, me personally, like I take the Munising area for granted growing up 35 minutes away from it.
Right.
Um, but like I think we went this past summer, my parents and girlfriend and her little brother, we went over there and we actually went and looked at everything. Like, oh my gosh, like you don't get to see this stuff every day. And
I
like
know it's
it's
crazy. Like even if you get into like obviously northern Wisconsin and Minnesota, there's some really cool stuff too. Like last summer, I was living in Ironwood, and I'd been to Bayfield and like the Apostle Islands, that area before, like when I was a kid, but went back over there on a weekend, and it's just like some of that stuff's amazing too. Like just all along the coast of Lake Superior, whether you're in Wisconsin or Michigan or wherever you're at, it's just crazy.
yeah, it's
How
gorgeous.
how it is. I mean, you can't really describe it unless you've been there.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's switch gears here a little bit and let's talk hockey.
All right.
I want to talk about fighting. I know you had a couple of fights in so we'll start with that, but then I just want to talk about like you obviously you can't fight in college, but
Yep.
we'll start with your fights. Did you win them? Like
Yeah.
or did you
So
get your ass handed to you, or I mean
no,
how did they
not
turn out?
that. Uh, so I think I was in 3, and I don't know why, but I waited till my last year of juniors to get in a couple fights. I don't know why I did that, but I did. So my last year of juniors, my first one ever, I didn't really have a choice. It was against some like, I think he was like 6'4", 6'5". I went down on the forecheck and I had a pretty nice hit on the forecheck, and I turn around and this big guy is right in front, drops his mitts, and I'm thinking in my head like, oh shit, like this wouldn't have been the first guy I would have picked to fight on the ice. So I'm like,
Right.
okay, I gotta go. So I dropped my mitts, and we were both freaking exhausted. We were just both swinging at each other. Like, I was dead tired. We swung probably, I don't know, 30, 35 seconds. And we both looked at each other and we were like, are we done? Like, are we done? And he goes, yeah, we're done. I'm like, all right. So that was the first one. It wasn't like anything crazy. I think I clocked him a couple times.
Yeah.
He might have got me once or twice. It wasn't.
So I mean, it was just like it was pretty even. Nobody really
Yeah.
anyone's ass.
No, I mean, I didn't hand it to him, but I would probably say I connected on a couple more.
Yeah.
And then there was another one where I ended up kind of jumping the guy. I probably shouldn't have done it, but jumped the guy. That one wasn't very the greatest. I can't really call that a fight. He did drop his stuff, but it didn't really end up as much. My last one was against Maine, actually, and it was on our New Year's Eve game in Johnstown, which the New Year's Eve game sells out every year. So like there was, I don't know, 35 to 4,000 people there. We were winning, and there was this kid, like, he kind of had a cheap shot on me, and we both fell down to the ground, and he's like, you want to go? And I'm like, yeah. So then without, like, we're still on the ground, he doesn't even take his gloves or anything off, and he tries swinging at me. I'm like, what's going on here? So I'm like, let's go. So we stand up, and then he starts skating away, and I'm like, what? Like, why are you asking me to go if you don't want to go? So then he gets over on the wall, and I thought he was dropping his stuff, but his glove, I hit him, and his glove just fell off. So I'm like, all right, now he wants to go. So I crap, and we just start swinging on each other. And I kind of ragdolled this guy. Like, this one definitely, I clocked him a couple times for cuts, got a couple left jabs in there, and the place absolutely erupted. Like, it wasn't like the greatest fight.
Yeah.
Quick one, but like that
But
one,
it was good enough to get the crowd going.
oh yeah, that one I definitely won. Skating off, just throwing my hands in the air. The fans were absolutely loving it. But ended up, I think I got a 10 for instigating. So I ended up full period, which kind of sucked. But yeah, those were my couple of fights. But I wish, like after those, I was like, wow, I'm actually kind of decent at, like, I'm pretty deep, like I can hold my own fighting.
Yeah.
Like, I wish, obviously you can't go back in time, but I wish I would have done it a little bit more, kind of my 2 years before that. Especially like when I was in Prince George, once we got to playoffs, I wasn't playing a whole lot. I think if I would have gotten a couple tilts, it probably would have helped my game time out a little bit.
It's hard though, coming out of high school, you can't fight. So like you don't really know what you're doing. You get bigger guys, and obviously everyone figures it out and they learn, but you know, it's not like you're coming from somewhere where you've been fighting. So
No,
you don't know if you're going to be good at it or not.
exactly.
Like, I had a kid from Hancock, Austin Solani. He's playing with the Austin Bruins. And he said that their coach kind of gives them a few pointers once in a while on fighting. But I mean, otherwise, it's just like you figure it out. When you first fight,
yeah,
you just like, it's
life.
life or death. I mean, you're
Yeah.
either going to get clobbered or you're going to clobber them.
Yep.
It's just, and I mean, I know everyone knows how to fight, but obviously fighting on skates is a little bit different, with your balance and like, you get guys, once they get a good hold on you, they grab your jersey in the right spot. They can just kind of throw you around like a rag doll.
Yep.
Like obviously there's some technique into it, but
yeah, I say like the biggest thing for me, like especially in that last one, I was I was pulling and then swinging, so I was getting them way off.
Yeah.
So once you're off balance, you're kind of screwed because then you're trying to worry about staying on your skates and not falling down.
Yep. Right, because as soon as you fall down, you're
You're
done. The refs are gonna come in and they're gonna, and then it's clear who won. It's the guy who's standing up. Even if he didn't really like beat the crap out of you, like once he gets you down, he won. Even if it wasn't a blowout.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be that guy that gets dragged down.
No.
Because then there's no question. I mean, sometimes two guys go down together, and it's like, well, you got to look at who hit more, who connected on more punches, but when one guy gets the other guy down, it's all right. That guy won the fight.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about, like, do you think there should be fighting in college? I think it'd be great. Like,
I think so. Like, yeah, I do. I would agree with there should be fighting in college because, so like, a lot of times, like, you'll have guys, running their mouth all game long, and you can't do really a thing about it.
You can't shut them up because you're gonna get that game suspension.
Yeah, I think if there was fighting in college, there would be a lot less mouth running.
Yeah.
And I also think it would, kind of settle some scores, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
If you have an issue with somebody, it's like, let's handle it,
Right. Let's just drop the gloves and
yeah. And I think it would be great. Like, I know, like, lately we haven't been getting a whole lot of fans at Lake State. But I also think it would be great for the fans. Like, if there was
even if your team's struggling a little bit, like, people know they're going to go there, they're going to see a big,
exactly. It's
good,
like you
good fight. I mean,
when like the crowd would absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And like, even when there's, like everything college hockey, they'll post videos like this past weekend, like Michigan and Michigan State, they got in a little tussling match, and it's like,
you're getting a little scrum, but it's like nobody's really going to take it far enough.
Yeah. It's like, I think it would be pretty cool to be able to fight. But I do know, because I think I read something on it. And I think a big reason there isn't fighting is because, and the reason colleges don't wear visors is because of like the school insurance or something. It's like something weird along the lines of like dental insurance or like it doesn't cover it. It's something weird like that.
Yeah.
But there's no, and that's a big reason you don't wear visors. And I'm sure you're technically not supposed to, fight.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a good reason for it. You know what I mean? Like there's a legit reason, like you said, dental insurance or something. It just, in high school you can't fight. Then you go to juniors and you can fight, and then you go to college and you can't fight again, and unless you go straight to the pros. It's like,
then after college you can fight again. It just doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't really make any sense.
No, and like the Michigan State series, obviously we saw those, like you said, those videos. There'd be fights every time in that series. Tech Northern, you'd have these like monumental hockey rivalries. Guys would be dropping the gloves. The fans would go wild. And like you said, it would settle scores. People would stop running their mouths.
Yeah.
Guys would learn a lesson. Like, I just can't be an asshole on the ice all the time. Otherwise, somebody's going to put me in my place. But you can't do that. And the other thing you see all the time in college hockey is, maybe it's not a fight, but like some guy will throw, like, the whistle's blown and somebody will throw a punch or they'll shove you. And before you can react, the ref is in there breaking it up. Like, so that guy just got a cheap shot in on you and you can't do anything about it because the ref's stopping it.
Yep, exactly. And a lot of times, like, I know a big thing here we emphasize on is like, if something like that happens, you got to be disciplined about it. Because like most of the time, like, at least in the CCHA, we're all very defensive. So like most of the time, if you're going to, like, obviously there's 5-on-5 goals all the time, but most of the time, if you're going to take a lead or tie the game up, it's going to be on the power play. So most of the time, if somebody takes a jab at you, like, at least here, we're pretty good at, not giving them a jab back because we want to go on the power play.
Right.
So
I mean, it's just
there's two sides.
there's yeah, exactly. There's two sides to it. But I mean, if you had that fighting, like maybe you guys would still get the power play if that guy got the, like you said, you got 10 minutes for instigating that one fight. So some of these, somebody might get more for instigating. You just get a minor penalty, so you end up with more. I mean, it's just, I think I don't know if it'll ever happen. You know what I mean? Like if there's insurance issues, could they change it if they wanted to? I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it'd be good for college hockey.
I would agree with that too. I think it would be
I mean,
cool.
they're gonna have to compete with, like, it's already hard. Like guys will go the OHL,
Mhm.
WHL route. They just completely skip college hockey and go right to the pros. So you've already got to compete with that. Like,
Yeah,
it's just gonna get harder, I think, for colleges to recruit, or maybe not all colleges, but your lower colleges, like, maybe your Lake States or your Miami, or some of these different programs that they're not renowned college hockey programs. Ferris State, like, they're having a decent year this year, but like usually they're not awesome. They're gonna have a harder time recruiting
yeah,
guys, because guys are gonna be like, well, I'll just go to the OHL. I'll go
yeah,
to the WHL. So if you had fighting, maybe some of those guys would decide to go with college route. I don't know.
yeah. Because I mean,
I
there's
don't
guys
know if it,
all they do is fight. Like there's one guy, I
right.
don't remember his name, but I mean, I'm pretty sure the only reason Montreal has kept him around is because he can swing his freaking hands, and he's
Yeah.
tough son of a gun. And he came, I
Yeah.
think,
And
Joe.
I mean, I know fighting has gone down in the pros. Like there's less fighting than it used to be, but it's still a big part of the game.
Oh yeah,
Everyone's got to have an enforcer. If you don't have at least one, then your team's going to get pushed around.
yeah,
And that's more at the NHL. I feel like in the AHL and the coast, you see more fighting. So like you've got to have fighters. There's got to be those guys that fight. It's a part of hockey that maybe it's not as big as it used to be, but it's never gonna fully go away.
no, it'll always stick around a little bit.
Yeah. Um. Here's something else I want to bring up. We've been talking about, and I'm just curious what your opinion is as a D1 athlete. And I don't know all of the information on it, but there's all kinds of stuff seeing across where some college athletes want to get paid, like they want a salary on top. I don't know if it's on top of their like scholarships or in place of a scholarship. Have you seen any of that stuff? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen any of that.
We've
But
been talking about it in my sports administration class.
okay,
There's some bill, I think it's in California, where they were like talking about paying athletes and how much each athlete would get paid. And there might be some athletes like this is different than NIL. It's just like, they want to be employees of the university, I think.
huh? That's very
Like,
interesting. I mean,
because like, I don't know, from like a fan, just like a regular college student, I kind of thought that like that's what your scholarship is. Like your full ride
that's how I would.
is, yeah.
I mean, I that's kind of it's pretty much my job. It's to show
Right.
us, get good grades, and then show up to the rink and work your tail off, and then after that enjoy the day. Uh,
Yeah.
and there's really not much more to it. So like I kind of consider myself like I'm getting paid to, obviously not technically getting paid, but my school is pretty much paid for. So it's like
Right.
it's your job. So I mean, I would look at it as already getting paid. Um,
Yeah. And one, like, how would it change? Like if they stopped giving scholarships and they started to pay athletes, wouldn't you just have to pay for your tuition then? Like
yeah,
are you
uh,
how much do you gain? Like I said, I don't know all of I just
detail.
know what we've like talked about in class. And I'm sure it's nothing that'll happen soon. Obviously, this is probably going to get talked about for years. I mean, the NIL stuff took forever.
Yeah,
So it's just something, I've asked other athletes, and everyone's kind of got a little different opinion on it. And like D3 athletes, most of them are just playing it because they love that sport and they just want to play it for 4 more years.
Yeah.
And even you get the guys who like walk onto a D1 program, they're just happy to be there. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting.
No,
And
like the way I would say, like you brought up the D3 thing, I do think, which I obviously I haven't done a whole lot of research on it, but I do think that Division 3 should have some sort of scholarships, which I think they do academically. Like
yeah,
if
they can't give out like an athletic scholarship. I mean, they could probably find an athlete they want and give them an academic scholarship.
Yep, yep,
But if you go on their website, I'm pretty sure it says something like it's for athletes who have a love for the game. Like
yep,
that's the point.
yep. Um, but I think some of those schools, if not, they should have at least, maybe 5 to 10 scholarships they could give out athletically, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, the ones that are contenders, especially in hockey. I mean, it's different in other sports, but guys go pro from D3 all the time. They end up playing in the coast or they go over to Europe and they end up playing pro. Some of those guys who are top of D3 could be in D1. I mean,
yeah,
those guys who are putting up numbers for Adrian or whatever, team is winning the national championship. Some of those guys could maybe they couldn't play for Minnesota,
yeah,
but I'm sure they could play for a D1 team somewhere and be competitive.
yeah, yeah. I would agree with that as well.
Yeah, it's all, and the other thing with like paying athletes is, I mean, you wouldn't be amateur athletes anymore.
No, you would
Like
be.
you'd be a professional
Yeah,
athlete just going to school at the same time. So it's weird to think about. Like
I could see it. I could see it if maybe they were paying on top of the scholarship, but I don't think it would make any sense for you to get paid and not get a scholarship because then your money's pretty much just going
yeah.
towards your schooling. I don't
Yeah, you would have to get paid on top of a scholarship to even make it worth
worth.
it.
Yeah,
But and then you start getting issues like, okay, how are you going to distribute the pay? Like on a football team with 100 guys, obviously everyone's not going to get paid the same because your
yeah,
quarterback is worth more than, and the same thing in hockey team. Your starting goalie, where do you prioritize your starting goalie, maybe your top forward and your defense? I mean, it would be just an absolute headache, I think, for all the administrators at these schools
yeah,
having to deal with it.
yeah,
But yeah, I just wanted your opinion on it quick. Curious,
yeah,
what people think about, because I mean there's some people obviously they're like, well, I don't feel like I need to get paid because I'm just happy to be here. And then obviously you've got some athletes who are like, yeah, I think I deserve it. So, it's just kind of interesting getting different sides to it.
yeah.
All right, let's talk about the CCHA quick.
Okay.
Obviously, you've been, you know what's going on with teams. Even if you haven't been playing a ton, you're around the games and you kind of know you've seen everybody. Who do you think has the best shot to make some noise out of the CCHA?
Well, obviously, I would love to say us,
Yeah,
but hopefully we can make a good run. Um,
right.
but I think like I was looking at the standings actually this morning, and I think it's going to come down to the last weekend, to be honest, when Tech plays Minnesota State. I think for first place, that's going to be, I think whoever wins that out is probably going to take over first place.
Yeah,
Tech, they've probably already gotten a bye. I mean, unless somehow or another they kind of crap the bed. They're a Sweet 16 anyway. I mean, they're going to get the whatever it's called, the vote in.
yeah,
Um, so, yeah, I mean, I don't really know because I mean, obviously anything could possibly happen.
yeah.
So that's kind of
It's
all.
a weird year I mean, like Minnesota State was, I feel like in the beginning of the year they were really good. Then they
Yep.
had that low spell where they kind of
Got
lost, and it was like they're going down a little bit. They fell to whatever in the rankings, and now they're climbing back up.
yeah.
So like with them, it's which team is going to show up on
Yep.
if they're going to be successful. And the same thing with Tech. I mean, they got embarrassed at the GLI, losing 8-1, the Western. Then they went on a tear and they lose the first game of Carnival 5-2.
Yeah.
Which team shows up is going to determine.
Well, and that's kind of how the whole CCHA is right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like whoever, like even Northern, they lost the same last night.
Yeah.
And they won on Friday night. It's like whoever's showing up is, winning. It's
and it's a question on who's going to show up when.
Exactly. Like right
It's
now
just
here, I mean, we're probably playing some of our best hockey at Lake
yeah.
State. Obviously we started the year out and we were bad. I mean, I think before Christmas we were like 1-15-2. So I think since Christmas we've won 6 games, which still isn't the greatest record, but yeah, I mean, like we talked,
turning it around.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at the positives. We're playing well right now, and who knows what could happen? Because, like I said, it's who's showing up, and I mean, all it takes is one bad game in the playoffs, and you can be moving on.
Right, and it's got to make like your team hopeful to see. None of these teams are just like killing it every weekend, both nights. Like everyone seems that everyone's having an off night or an off weekend, which is perfect for a team like you guys, where you just like expose that weakness, you slip through a crack, and you win that series because for whatever reason there's so much like inconsistent. Like
Exactly.
some of these teams just, other than I feel like the top, like Minnesota and Quinnipiac seem to be pretty consistent out of all of college hockey just throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
But even some of the other top teams, what was it, St. Cloud last weekend? I think they got swept.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So, I mean, number 3 or 4 team in the country gets swept. It's like, okay, it's anyone's ball game this year. Like, don't even really know what to expect for the playoffs.
No, I think it's going to be, I think anybody could freaking win this year, like.
Yeah, which is good. Like, I mean.
How it should. I mean, it should be. I mean, I don't know how many, I think there's 62 Division I teams. It's like, yeah, there's some at the bottom and then there's some at the top, but they're all pretty equal. I mean, there's other years that there's, 5 teams that have lost 3 games all year,
Yeah.
But I don't think there's that many this year that have. I mean, I think Quinnipiac has only lost 4 or 5.
I think they're like 23, 3-3.
Okay.
Or something like that. Like they've got like 3 or 4 losses and then some ties or shootout, whatever. And then Minnesota, I think they're like 20-7 or something like that. But like you said, yeah, there's not teams that they've only got a couple losses and they're just cruising.
Yeah.
It's every weekend I look on everything college hockey, they put out the like top 10 games. And it's crazy the upsets there have been this year. I mean, every weekend there's a bunch of upsets. Like I'm a big Notre Dame guy with all like sports, and they've been having a pretty down year, but they beat Ohio State on Friday, and then they got the shootout win in the extra point last night. And Ohio State's, I think, number 10 in the country or something. So like I don't know, everyone. It's just a weird year.
Yeah,
it's got that like March Madness feel to it, but it's been all year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's been a good year of college hockey from a like exciting fan side of it.
Yeah.
Which is good. It's just going to help viewership and people are going to want to watch games.
Yeah.
Especially like you guys, like you said, yeah, attendance has been lower, but you guys are winning now. You're having more success.
Well, and like part of the issue we have, I don't know if I said this before, but like part of the issue we have here is honestly our rink's probably a little too big for our population. So like I think our rink sits 3,900 or 4,900 or something. And I mean, it takes, so like down at Michigan, or, one of those bigger schools, it takes 1% to fill the rink.
Right.
It's like 50-60% of our population to fill our rink. So, even if we have, 2,000 people there, it doesn't really look like we have that many just because the rink's so big.
Yeah. The athletic director, Suzanne Sanagret, she's the one that teaches my sports administration class. And she was talking about that same thing with tech. Like they've like tossed around the idea of, should we blow out that end wall that's got nothing on it and add more seats? Because I think they can seat, just around 4,000 people. A full house, you can get more with standing room.
Yep.
But she was like, if you look at the population of like Houghton County and even some of the surrounding counties, when you have a full house, you're looking at a large percentage of the population is there. So is it worth it to add more seats? Probably not. You're probably not going to sell out as many nights.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's better to have a little bit smaller barn, sell it out, get that electric atmosphere.
Yeah.
Because like you said, if you guys have too big of a rink, you're not as successful. Like if you guys had a smaller rink and the same amount of people were showing up, it might feel louder than it actually is.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that 100%. And like when Michigan came at the beginning of the year, and like obviously we knew that was going to be a big weekend, and there was probably 100 empty seats in there. So like most of the people in the Sioux were at the Taffy Able. And like when that place is packed, it is pretty freaking, like there's quite a few people there, but also, our students, we have the smallest, I think we have, 1,800 students here. So that's the other thing. I think we're the smallest school in Michigan. And a lot of the times, most of the students go home on the weekends.
Yeah.
Really have any point in staying around because most of them are from just the other side of the bridge, and it's a hour drive home. So they don't really have any reason to stay, in the Sioux. Which I think if we had some more students, it would obviously help fill the arena up as well. But yeah, that's kind of my look on the fan base. And, the fans are, even when we have 1,500 fans, they're awesome. It's just, it's not as loud as it could be in there.
Yeah. It's harder when you've got a bigger barn, even if you've got 1,000 to 2,000 people in there, there's still all that extra room that they can't fill. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just, and like you brought up, and I don't think about it all the time when you're thinking about like filling barns is like the enrollment of the college. Like, oh yeah, Michigan, their enrollment's so big they could just pack that barn every weekend because they've got so many students.
Yeah.
It you know what I mean? It doesn't even play a factor.
Yep.
You could have different students go to every single game and you'd still fill the barn. Like, at Tech, Lake State, these places, you need the same kids to come every weekend to fill that barn. If like a couple people don't show up, you can notice.
Yeah.
Like where are those kids that usually sit in that row or whatever? I mean, it's just crazy what it's like at a smaller school compared to those big ones.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up here with your cool story that you said you had. I don't know. You said it wasn't funny, but it's cool. So I don't know what that means, but I guess we'll find out.
It's not really a story. Obviously I probably have some stories I could tell, but I don't really want to tell them.
Well, right.
Yeah,
exactly. Everybody's got those. They're just like, you share them with your friends when you're at the bar. Yeah. That's it. Nobody else needs to know about them.
Maybe if you have a couple beers with your parents, maybe you squeak a little hint out to your parents of what happened. So it's not really, I guess it's kind of a story, but so when my second to last year of juniors, we ended up winning the BCHL when I was up in Prince George, British Columbia, and we kind of hung out there for about 2 weeks after the season. we ended up going to the RBC. We lost to Brooks in the RBC tournament, and they were the host team, so they technically shouldn't have been there. But yeah, that's the way you got to look at it after you lose.
Yeah.
So we ended up hanging out, and there was 7 or 8 guys from Michigan and the Toronto area. So we all kind of grouped together, and we were like, hey, like, should we make a road trip home? Like, should we make the trek home? Because like I was planning on flying, would have been home in a day. And we were like, yeah, like, why not? So after our 2 weeks after the season, we stayed up there and, obviously had some fun. We did some fun stuff, did some exploring and whatnot. And then us 7 to 8 guys, we ended up hopping in the cars. I think we had like 5 or 6 cars in the convoy, and we started driving back towards Michigan. We said we were going to take 6 days.
Yeah.
So we ended up driving. So we ended up stopping, what's it called? It's like a glacier in between British Columbia and Banff, Alberta. So we ended up stopping.
Okay.
We went and did some hiking and hung out there for hours. We ended up actually taking a shower under this waterfall, and it was like 28 degrees. The water was absolutely free. But we all ended up taking a shower under this waterfall. It was we have some pictures. It was a very cool scenario. Then we go to Banff, Alberta, stop in Banff, Alberta. And like most of this stuff, like obviously you see pictures of it. You're like, wow, that looks cool. But like when you see this stuff in real life, it is like, you are like,
incredible.
Holy smokes. Like
it's jaw dropping.
Yeah. It's like, wow, this is unbelievable. So we went to Banff. We stayed there for a night, ended up going out, having some fun, did some exploring, it was like some glacier spring, and there's a mountain on the other side, like surreal stuff. So like most of this, like this whole entire road trip, like I would never see, like maybe Yellowstone, which I'll get there. Like I would never see in my entire life if I wouldn't have made this trip home. Like it was just mind-boggling how cool some of this stuff was. So after Banff, Calgary was like 40 minutes away, and obviously the 7-8 of us were like, let's just drive the 40 minutes, hang out in Calgary, have some fun, go out for some drinks, enjoy the city. And we ended up doing that. So we drove 40 minutes. We weren't supposed to only drive 40 minutes that day. We were supposed to drive, I think it was like 8 hours or something. So we ended up doing that, went out there, and then we ended up going down to Glacier National Park, which is just on the border of Canada and I don't remember the state. I don't want to say the state because I don't want to be wrong. Stopped there, and there was actually too much snow, so we couldn't see anything, which kind of sucked. But it was just the fact, hey, I've been to Glacier National Park. And then we went down to Yellowstone. So we went way out of the way to see some of this stuff. But we all were like, let's just have fun with it. I've never seen any of this before in my life, and I probably never will if I don't stop, if we don't out. So we stayed I think we stayed a day and a half in Yellowstone, saw some like buffalo and stuff, which you don't see every day. And then we went from there to Banff, or we went from there to, sorry, I got some company. We went from there to the Badlands, which was pretty cool. And then after the Badlands, there was not, it was pretty slow driving, and we just were like, I think we ended up driving like 15 hours, but we ended up taking this detour, which we didn't know what, like, the GPS took us the wrong way, and we are driving down these like dirt roads, like they are like logging truck 2-track roads, like you would never think would be on a GPS. What in the heck have we gotten ourselves into? Like what are we doing? We're lost. So we end up keep following the GPS, And this takes us like 3 hours, like out of the way. But we're like, you know what? Like, let's see what happens. It brought us to this highway that was on the side of this mountain. Like it was the coolest detour you possibly could have taken. Like
Yeah.
we got to the top of this mountain at the bottom. I think it was like 55, 60 degrees. We get to the top of this mountain. It's a blizzard. There's like 3 inches of snow on the top of this mountain. You know, you look down to your right, you look down to your left. Like it is a 300, probably more than that foot drop. Like, and we were driving on dirt roads until we got there. So it was a very cool, it was kind of like just traveling the country, you know, who cares what happens, like wherever
Yeah.
we end up. We ended up getting home, I think. It took us like 6.5 days. But it was like the best. It was very, very, very cool.
Yeah. I mean, a lifetime
Lifetime,
memories that
yeah. And
you would
experience.
have never got if you just flew home.
Yeah.
You know, if you just decided like, yeah, I could be home tomorrow, but think about everything you did.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, that's a cool story. Like all the stuff you got to see.
Yep.
Because you guys just like, hey, why not do a road trip? Like
Yeah.
let's have some fun instead of just rushing home. We're gonna get home eventually.
Yeah.
Why not see a little
We didn't
extra?
we didn't have anything to be home for. And you know,
Yeah.
we won, so we were like, like let's enjoy our time, you know. We're probably never gonna
Yeah.
see each other for quite a few years, you know. But yeah, so not like the funniest, greatest story, but that's
No, but it's cool.
my cool story.
Yeah. Right. Like you said, you had nothing to be home for. So if you would have flown home, you would have just been sitting around, like
Yeah.
probably when
And I probably,
instead you got to see all this stuff that you might never see again, or maybe you'll get back. Who knows?
yeah, no, I think I'll end up getting back to Yellowstone. Um,
Yeah.
I've talked to my dad about going back to British Columbia and, you know, kind of road tripping around BC and going to Calgary and flying in. But it's all just kind of talk. So,
Yeah. Right. Eventually, you've got
oh,
time.
yeah,
Once you're done with hockey, it makes it easier too to plan some of this stuff.
yeah,
All right,
yeah,
I think that's a good place to wrap it up. So thanks for coming back on another episode of the pod. Always glad to have you back.
yeah. Thanks for having me. I enjoy it.
Of course, it's always a good time.